Today, what we're going to be talking about is we want to know, and I think we've come up with a couple of answers here. But when was Bryan Kohberger on radar, and why was he on the radar of the Moscow Police Department? There's a couple of articles that I've pulled up, or two articles in particular, that kind of talk about the timeline in reference to what occurred from the time that the incident had occurred on November 13th to the time that his Kohberger's arrest on December 30th. There's been a lot of debate whether or not Moscow Police Department had an informant that pointed them in their direction, if there was another person or a co-defendant, things of that nature, right? We often said that we felt that Kohberger wasn't prime suspect, number one. So here's what we've been able to discover or find out. My theory, and you can go back to the couple of episodes before to check it out, has been that, they were aware of Kohberger, but he didn't meet the criteria, right? He didn't have the vehicle, the appropriate vehicle. He had a 2015 Hyundai Elantra, and they probably checked his phone numbers against the cell phone towers and saw that he wasn't in the area because his phone was off during the time of the commission of the crime. And we felt that was a reason why they, weren't looking at him or whatnot. This article here, this is from the New York Times. This states here that they checked Mr. Kohberger's car more closely, according to court affidavit, including visiting the parking lot near his apartment in the early morning hours of November 29th. But the vehicle was a 2015 model, and not the earlier model being sought out in Moscow. So right here, right now, they went to go look at his vehicle, and they were discouraged by the year of the vehicle. They also say that they brought in, as investigators vacuumed more records and data. They already sought cell phone data for all phones that pinged cell towers within a half mile of the victim's house from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., according to the search warrant filings. I think that those two reasons right there, that Kohberger didn't have the appropriate year model vehicle at this time, and also the fact that his phone was off, I think they put him on the back burner. That's why when I think that he took off to Pennsylvania, I don't think they knew that he had left. The Moscow Police Department had put out that they were looking for a 2011 or 13 Hyundai Elantra. That came out December 7th. They never changed it, right? Now, according to the New York Times article, they had, and we'll talk briefly about it. This talks about DNA, and this talks about how investigators had used genetic genealogy methods to track down other individuals that committed crimes similar to what this crime was, but usually those being in cold cases, things of that nature. But what it says here is by the morning of December 19th, records show the investigators had a name, Bryan Kohberger. He had a white Elantra. He was a student at the university 8 miles from the incident, right? This is the December 19th, 2022 update with Chief of Police James Fry. My suspicion is this was released December 19th, but this was probably recorded December 18th. And the reason why I say this is over here in the New York Times article, December 19th in the morning is when they had a name of Bryan Kohberger, and they knew he had a white Elantra. So let's listen to what this has to say.
What do you have for an update about the white Hyundai Elantra?
We have many tips that have come in on the 2011 to the 2013 Hyundai Elantra. But
did you hear that? They have many tips on the 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra. This was probably recorded December 18th, released December 19th, right? December 19th is when they find out Bryan Kohberger's name. That tells me that when up to this point that they didn't know it was a 2014 to 16 Elantra, and that the FBI profiler or whatever that they did in Quantico at the FBI headquarters to determine that the vehicle is 2014 to 16 was after they had Bryan Kohberger's name. Yeah. I think that's a pretty big deal. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
December 19th, they find out his name. December 18th, we assume that this is when this is being recorded. They don't have his name. He's already left, right? Now, if we were to go to the Airmail article by Howard Bloom, it states here that Chief Fry, for once, met late in the morning on December 20th with Rand Walker, the department's psychologist, and Rod Opes, one of the police chaplains in the courthouse library. It was one of the few places they could huddle where the chief felt no one would be listening. He says, I'm going to need you two guys to get ready, he said with a deliberate coyness. I'm going to need you before too long. The two men eagerly asked whether there had been a break in the case. Fry did his best to rein in a pregnant smile. All I'm saying, he reiterated, is I need you both to stand by. I might be calling you very soon. But by 4:30 that afternoon, Moscow police communication team issued a flash update. Investigators were aware of the white Hyundai Elantra located in Eugene, Oregon, and have spoken with the owner of the vehicle, not believed to have any relation to any property to Moscow or Idaho or the ongoing investigation. That tells me that they didn't know where Bryan Kohberger was. You get what I'm saying? Because if they thought that the white Elantra, this is the white Elantra, that was in Eugene, Oregon, and the reason why maybe they thought it was him is because once they got his name December 19th, they probably went to go look for him, maybe ask him a few questions. I think that was probably what the scenario was going to be. He wasn't home. At the very least, try to get eyes on the guy, right? And when he's not there and they see a crashed Elantra come up in Eugene, Oregon, you know, they're probably watching him the 19th, the 20th. Hey, he didn't show up at any point, not knowing that he was cross country. They didn't know where he was. This vehicle pops up. It's been crashed. The license plates have been removed. No, wrong side. There it is. License plate has been removed. Front bumper was taken off.
Oh, they wrecked the front bumper. They must have been
Right.
joyriding with that bad boy.
But what this tells me, Big Blue, is they thought this was Kohberger. And I think that's why they were able to clear this vehicle so quickly without having to necessarily go down there. They probably had somebody go out there, check the VIN number, it came back to another vehicle. It's not involved. That's why they cleared it without having to go down there and check. They already were looking for a suspect. You know what I'm saying? But they didn't know where he was. So this leads me to believe that those stops in Indiana were what they were. You know, we have talked about that. We talked about the demeanor of the officers that approached that vehicle. Had they been aware that the operator of that vehicle was a quadruple homicide suspect, I would anticipate that the demeanor be a lot more on the ready approach. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what this guy is going to do. You know, if he just committed this crime, you're stopping him. You know, he doesn't know that you're stopping him for unrelated crimes. To his knowledge, you know, to Bryan Kohberger, he may have thought that they were stopping him because of the quadruple homicide. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I think they found out where he was. Now, I feel that, and this is where I'm like sort of, you know, going back into my speculation, and you tell me if this makes sense, Blue. But I feel that at this point, they felt that they were going to make this arrest. Now, if you go back to the New York Times article, this talks about the DNA, right? And how they were able to track down Kohberger. From this article, what I understand is that the Moscow labs was able to identify a DNA profile. What they did was they sent it to another lab to get a more in-depth profile and also to conduct the genealogy test, which would basically be like the Ancestry 23andMe. And they were able to connect that DNA to a name of a distant relative of Kohberger, right? And so I think that they felt that somewhere between the 19th, when they got his name, to the 20th, when they decided not to announce anything or go and arrest Kohberger, I feel that they decided that they felt the need to come up with other means of pinning this crime on him, other than that genealogy DNA, because let's just say that piece of evidence gets thrown out, right? Anything found behind it would get thrown out as well. And so I think what they did was they decided to, you know, start searching more into Kohberger after that point, probably talk to his professors and things of that nature. It's probably a lot easier to do with Kohberger out of state as well, without having to, you know, arouse suspicion because he wasn't in the area or at the campus, things like that. And they were able to come up with, in my opinion, a somewhat loose warrant for his cell phone pings. You know, based on his knowledge of criminal justice, I don't think that that's merely enough to indicate that he was, you know, that he was possibly the actor in this case. Now, I think during that time is when they sent that those images of the white Elantra to Quantico, where they could go out there and, you know, manipulate those images, clear them up, so that they can determine that it was in fact indeed a possibility that it was a 2014 to 2016 Hyundai Elantra. Thank you for catching that clip of the Drunk Turkey Show. That clip is from an extended live podcast where you can catch that live right here. Also, if you want to catch the shows live, make sure you tune in Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 7:35 p.m. Central. It's usually around the time that we hit the live button. If you want to get notified of those things, and also when we do our segments or clips, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. That being said, y'all, we'll see you next time. Peace.